All right, welcome to today's webinar where I'm going to talk about unlocking your energy and really tapping into the root causes of fatigue. I've said here for busy professionals, but just busy people, for everybody, really. We're all busy. And the information I share in my training, it doesn't replace a one-on-one relationship with a qualified health professional. So it's really important that what I say today is very generic. It's education. It's not health or medical advice. And the unauthorized reproduction or distribution of copyrighted work is illegal. You'll see from today, I put a lot of effort and love into my webinars, and hence why I share that copyright notification. Feel free to share it, however. If you've got friends or family or colleagues or people who you think are struggling with their energy, feel free to share a link for them as well. So, what I'm going to do today is show you how you can increase your energy for good without coffee. And hopefully, by the end of our time together, you're going to have some insights into maybe what are some of the root causes, and there could be several that are robbing you of energy every single day, and get you a bit clearer on what are some of the next steps to take. So, can you relate? And I promise I'm not stalking you, but these are the common things that I hear all the time in my clinic. I wake up feeling tired. I often hit the snooze button, usually multiple times, just to get a few minutes extra of sleep. I rely on caffeine to get me through the day. Another one I hear a lot of is I get sugar cravings that I can't resist, and it's often in the afternoon, 2 or 3 o'clock, or after dinner. I want to have more patience with my family, co-workers, and friends. Low mood, anxiety is something that I see very commonly. And also fatigue, getting in the way of exercising, preparing healthy meals, and just living the life that I want to live and love. And if you tick yes to a lot of those, you're in the right place. And like I said, I'm not stalking you. We are in a society where some of these things are now labeled as just being normal because they're common. And I'm going to share with you today why they're not normal and some of the reasons why you may be tired. So imagine waking up with energy every morning, having a stable mood and energy through the day, being happy and healthy for your age and stage of life, and also feeling confident that you're nourishing and looking after your body. So, I'm a university qualified integrative and functional medicine nutritionist, and I've got a special interest in gut health, epigenetics, and autoimmune conditions. I'm just finishing my certification with the Institute of Functional Medicine. I've got a master's of integrative medicine, and I've supported hundreds of people all around the world regaining their energy and optimizing their health. And I do facilitate a few different programs, but the one that I'll be sharing with you a little bit today is about my 21-day energy jumpstart, which is also known as my detox and cleanse programs. So, what is integrative and functional medicine nutrition? So, really, what we're doing is looking at what are some of the non-negotiables in your food and lifestyle, support you to go from deficiency in intake to sufficiency and helping absorption, whilst working through what's not working optimally. And the word I've used here is dysfunction in the body. And if we look at the functional medicine tree, what I work a lot with people on is, they may have diagnoses up here in the tree system, and lots of signs and symptoms. But what functional medicine does is it stops to say, right, what is going on around your lifestyle and your environment and your genetic predisposition, and how can we optimize your roots so you can thrive? So it's been a life-changing experience for me. I've been bedridden with chronic fatigue 3 times in my life, and I will never go back there, and I never want to go back there. One time it was for a month, and when I stop, now that I've qualified in what I've done and I have that introspection, it's very clear to me what some of the antecedents and the triggers and the mediators were for me to end up in that position. For me, a lot of it is genetic predisposition. It's also mold illness. It's also that because of some of my genetics, my methylation, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, wasn't optimized. So uh, it's different for everyone why we've got low energy. But for me, especially being in that really chronic end of being bedridden, for me, it's been life changing, absolutely stepping back to go, right, why? Why? In functional medicine, that's what we do. We just keep asking the question, why? So, what I want you to do today is stop and reflect. Are you getting everything done? How's your stress? What have you eaten? Have you had any cravings? How have your interactions been with the people around you? And how's your energy? And how's your mood? So I just want you to take a moment. You don't have to write them down. You don't have to tell me what they are, but it's more of a bit of a self-reflection to go, yes, I'm operating at a good level. And often people, we talk about surviving versus thriving. So where do you feel like you're more sitting? Are you more in that, I'm just surviving, I'm just getting through? Or actually, no, I'm doing really well, I'm thriving. Because your energy affects that. Your energy affects absolutely every aspect of your life. And things that are robbing you of energy are certain food and drinks, are potentially nutrient and mineral deficiency, are probably unbalanced blood sugar levels and gut health and stress and reduced adrenal health and more. And that's what I'm going to share with you, some of these things today. What about over exercising? I see that a lot. People are doing way too much. What about under exercising? That can also make you tired. Not getting quality sleep, hormonal imbalances, inflammatory conditions like autoimmune, or having, like I had, mold illness or heavy metals in the system, or toxins, or you may have had infections in the past. They can all make you really tired. And as you can imagine, we don't have time to go into all of them today, but what I'm going to give you is some of the big things that I'm honing into with people to identify what the root causes of fatigue and low energy is. But before I will, I'll share a quick story about Ange. So she said she felt more energy in 21 days, more focused, more healthier. And I remember Ange saying it was brain fog. It was like it just disappeared and lifted just from changing her food for 3 weeks, which is absolutely amazing. Bloating, tiredness, and sinus all disappeared. And I'll share with you a little bit today about why changing what you eat can have remarkably significant changes on your energy quickly. So, I'm going to kick off with one of my favorite topics, methylation and nutrigenomics. So, what is it? So, when we think about energy, one of the most important things we've got to think about is how do we make it? And our goal is to make this ATP. And so it's called adenosine triphosphate. And it's basically the end of the citric acid or the Krebs cycle. So we've got this cycle that's going on 24/7 all day long, every second of the day to help us make cellular energy. And that's happening in every single cell of the body, 35 trillion odd cells. Um, and in the cells, we've got these tiny factories called mitochondria. So this is happening at a minutiae level all across the body all the time. And I think the really important thing to really hone in, this map looks complicated, but when you understand it, it makes perfect sense. Um, but what I'm going to share with you is look, we have proteins that have to come into the cycle. We have good quality carbohydrates that have to come into the cycle. And we have good quality fats, healthy fats like avocado and nuts and seeds that have to come into the cycle. If you're not eating well, you can see the cycle is probably not got the necessary inputs. The other thing that we find with this cycle is if you are low in what we call cofactors. So, for some people, because they're not eating an abundance of certain foods, they are low in their Bs or their magnesium or carnitine, which then can make the cycle basically, it's like a handbrake come on certain parts of it, which then, as a result, you're not making your energy, you're not making your ATP. Heavy metals is another one that can really slow things down. So, we all think, okay, heavy metals, I don't have that. Well, when I test, particularly people who are chronically sick, they do. They have heavy metals. So things like aluminium, you pick that up in cans, deodorant, aluminium foil, it's in baking soda. You'll be surprised at where these heavy metals are hiding. Arsenic is a big one. I'm also seeing antimony as a really big one. Kids are playing outside in the bark in the garden and they're getting high levels of these heavy metals in their body because the bark is sprayed with certain compounds, which is then impacting their health. So, how do we test for heavy metals? Well, we test it, well, how I test it is a hair test. So, I've gone a bit off track there talking about hair testing, but you can see it's complex. So, if we get the food right and the inputs into the food, into the cycle, and you're still tired, that's when we start continuing that investigation as to what's going on. Now, this is what's called the folate methionine and transsulfuration pathway. So, look, again, it looks complicated. When you understand it, it makes perfect sense. With regards to the Krebs cycle, which is down here, right down here, which is this is a citric acid Krebs cycle. They just call it different things. This. So basically, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to say, look, if all of this process above is not working, then you don't have the necessary inputs into the Krebs cycle. And for me, that's been the case. Genetically, I've got some very significant methylation, we call it single nucleotide polymorphisms, SNPs, which is basically differences in how my genes instruct my enzymes to work. And as a result, my inputs into the Krebs cycle were not optimal. And that's why I think landed me with very severe chronic fatigue, like I said, 3 times. Now it's all humming and I keep an eye on it and I do eat exceptionally well and I do take a very targeted approach to my supplements. I feel fantastic. I feel really good and I couldn't do my job if I didn't. So what we do if we get stuck is we may need to look at your genetics. So we may need to say, look, what's going on with some of these genes? And this is the Smart DNA Advanced Pathways test to say, right, what is going on with your folate and methylation? If you want to know more about nutrigenomics and methylation, I do have a webinar on that. So you can have a look at that webinar on my YouTube. Now, how we can also measure what's going on in the body is with WEE. So doing a WEE test, we can do the Omnex metabolomic study or the organic acid urine test, and they're similar but different. And again, you can see here we're looking at the Krebs cycle. Both of them do look at the Krebs cycle, where I'm going, okay, where does it look like particular aspects of your energy production for you to make ATP are stuck? So I take that in mind with everything else that's going on with the report, but also if we have your genetic profile. So again, there's another video on that if you're interested in that. But I want you to know if you're really tired, really fatigued, chronic fatigue, you don't have to feel that way. So, we don't give up. But going back to eating. So I showed you how eating good quality carbs and fats and proteins can help. And with Bronwyn, for 3 weeks, she got rid of symptoms she'd been living with for years. And she's an athlete. She wanted to keep performing at her best, but she was struggling. And so for her, 21 days was a significant investment in just getting the nutrients going into the system more balanced and having that ability to reduce inflammation. Now, sleep and breathing. Now, this is another area near and dear to my heart, and I was so excited last week to go to a specialist dentist. I think it's a periodontist, um, because I've just started to have a few issues with my jaw. Now, for women in particular, in their 40s, 50s, with perimenopause and menopause, with the hormonal changes, the jaw does change. So I was conscious of that. But I wanted to make sure I don't grind my teeth away. I wanted to make sure that, everything was humming, and it was insightful. So they did a cone beam scan of my head. And of course, like a lot of people, my airway is exceptionally thin. So it's less than my finger thin, and he said it should be thicker than your thumb. So the other thing is my tongue and the muscles in my tongue, it's not resting in the right spot, which is probably impacting my airway, my what is it called? Forget what it's called. But now that I'm taping my nose at night, I'm breathing better. I look gorgeous at night. I tape my nose and I wear a splint in my mouth and I mouth tape. Um, but since doing these things, the biggest thing I've noticed is I'm dreaming. I'm having these crazy, amazing dreams every night, and my energy has again had another uplift. So I think oxygenation is absolutely critical. If you know you're sleeping with your mouth open, if you're waking with a sore throat or a dry throat, um, you need to be breathing through your nose. So we've got to work through, work with a specialist in Canberra here. I highly recommend Symmetry Dental. Um, I work with them a lot, and that's who I see myself personally, because you need that restorative sleep. Now, my next step, once I sort out all of this, will be a sleep apnea test. But I'm feeling so good just even with these couple of changes and doing the muscle retraining of my tongue, that I'm hopeful that my airways are going to be much improved. I honestly feel the difference. What we've also got to think about is, if you're struggling falling asleep or staying asleep, and like I said, waking up at night, through the night, or struggling to wake up in the morning, what we've got to do is work through why. What is it? Is it because you're spending too much time in blue light on the phones before bed? Is it stress? Is it EMFs from having Wi-Fi on? Is it because you're drinking alcohol? Is it because you're going to bed too late? Or maybe it's other things. Maybe it's a deficit with serotonin. Maybe it's an issue because if you don't have enough serotonin, you can't make melatonin. Maybe it's issues with B12. So what I do is I keep digging and digging and digging until we get you to a spot where we get your sleep much, much better. Hormonal imbalances. So this is a big one. When we think about hormones, a lot of people often jump to testosterone or estrogen or progesterone, but the really a major one is around our cortisol and our insulin. So we've got to remember that our hormones need to be playing like a beautiful orchestra over the day. Over 24 hours, they're all working in harmony. And what happens is around 10:30 at night, your cortisol starts to peak. So it's a little bit earlier than this 12 a.m. And what it's doing is it's kind of like a chairlift going up, and it's going up, 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 up. And while it's increasing through the night, your insulin stays quiet. And that's why you're not waking up going, I'm hungry, I have to eat through the night, because the cortisol is in charge, if I can use that simple language. And so then what happens is when you wake up, it is important that you're eating within an hour of waking to signal to the body, okay, cortisol, great, you're at your peak. Now it's time for insulin to take over. Because cortisol, as you may know, has been recognized as a stress hormone, and we don't want it keeping going up all day long. We want it to be then signaled so that insulin can kick in. And insulin's the one that keeps your blood sugar balanced. It's really critical for your metabolic health. And that's, I think, a big part in people's energy, especially on the program that I run and when I work with people one on one, is when they start reintroducing breakfast, they do notice changes in their energy. Now, that can be really hard to do if you haven't eaten breakfast for a long time and you don't have a morning appetite. Again, we've got to go and ask the question, well, why? Why is that? And start small. And over time, we can start to get your adrenals and your cortisol and insulin and your blood sugar more humming. So, shout out if you've got any questions as I'm going. Gut health, number four. So, look, gut has a profound influence on our health. And there's more and more research coming out every year, thousands and thousands of articles. And of course, quite simply, we absorb our nutrients there. So if we don't have good quality nutrients going in, then we're not absorbing good quality minerals, vitamins, what we need into the bloodstream. We are more than what we eat. We're what we chew, what we digest, and what we absorb. And that's before we even start looking at the absolute complexity of the gut microbiome. And trust me, this is a simple diagram. Some of them are so complex, they blow my head up. And really, what this is saying is look, in the gut, we've got good bugs and we've got some bugs which can be a bit opportunistic and can be nasty when they're at high levels. What they can do is it's the ones which can are opportunistic can create things like lipopolysaccharides. And lipopolysaccharides are not great. They can get absorbed into the bloodstream. They can cause inflammation. And what the studies show is it can impact fatigue and energy. And I know this with a lot of people when they clean up their gut and we sort out their gut health, energy improves. The other thing with, like I said, with food is some foods are feeding these really important compounds called short chain fatty acids. And they're in our large colon. They're absolute, it's mainly these three that the foods we're eating are making. And what they do is when we're eating foods that are feeding our short chain fatty acids, which is largely the abundance of fruits and veggies, it helps increase our energy as well. So definitely if you've got gut issues, if you're constipated, if you have diarrhea, if you've got bloating, any signs of gut things going on, we've got to go in and have a look because you could have a disturbance that is impacting your gut. 80% of your immune system's located just below the lining of your gut cells. So your gut lining's one cell thick. And if that immune system that's just below the lining of the gut gets flared up, then it can cause fatigue and other inflammatory things. You may have heard of leaky gut. We call it intestinal permeability in the research. And basically, it's where that lining of the gut's just one cell thick. It's where there's damage. And so, where we see high levels of zonulin, we say, look, it looks like there's what we call intestinal permeability, which puts you at risk of pathobionts in your gastrointestinal tract leaking into your blood system. It's not good. It can cause fatigue. It can cause infections, can disrupt your neurotransmitters, your mood, food intolerances, and create, a lot of the reasons for that is because of uncontrolled inflammation. So you can test your gut. It's a gut test, a poo test. And what it does is it comes out and says, look, Does it look like we've got an overgrowth of pathogens? Do you not have enough good bugs? What's going on with your digestion? And that way we can really, really hone in to see what's going on and how much of this is a contributor to your fatigue and low energy. Again, watch the video on the benefits of the GI map gut test if you've got gastrointestinal symptoms happening because they're not normal. Remember, just because they're common and you've had it forever doesn't mean it's normal. And the people who I see who've had constipation since childhood, that's where I get particularly interested in genetics, things around, what is going on, what could be some of the causes of this, as well as thinking about potential anatomy things going on. So number 5, and this is the one that you'll probably be able to influence most going away from today's session, is food and drinks. So the first one's refined carbohydrates and processed carbs. So the thing is, they're stripped of fiber. So think of white pasta, white bread, crackers, biscuits, pretzels, most cereal, and most baked goods, and white rice in saying that. So thinking about, just picking on rice, when you eat brown rice compared to white rice, it has the bran, which has got a lot of fiber. It's got the endosperm, which has the carbs and the proteins in it. And it's got the germ. And the germ is a really important part of the brown rice and the wild rice and all the other types of rices that are not white rice. That has antioxidants. It's got vitamin E and B and healthy fats. So just upgrading the quality of the rice that you're having, or if you're having, for instance, I see a lot of people having gluten-free bread that's white, that's based on white rice. By upgrading the quality of what you're putting in, you're going to get these extra benefits for your health, which hopefully will help with your energy. Refined carbs, people often say, look, after eating a pasta or something, I feel tired. And what's going on is this insulin, this spike and crash energy cycle. You might get the same spike and crash with sugar. The best way to get around that is having protein with your carbs, but also healthy fats. The other thing is thinking about how do you upgrade your carbs. So we spoke about white rice, brown rice. What about quinoa? Quinoa is really rich in a whole bunch of minerals, buckwheat, beans and lentils, oats, although be very careful if you have celiac disease and you haven't done the oat challenge, or if you have Crohn's disease or autoimmune or gluten sensitivity, be careful with oats. Sweet potato is a great carb source, and also blueberries. So there are options, and I think it's about trialing it out. If you haven't tried quinoa or buckwheat or beans or lentils, maybe today is a good option to say, look, I'm going to give it a shot. I feel great if I eat lentils once or twice a week because they're so rich in B vitamins. And for me, there's something in there that makes me feel really, really good. So I highly recommend you try these things out and see. Another one from Karen. So she said her joint pain reduced significantly, her bloating eased, she wasn't losing as much hair, she was sleeping better, and that physical and mental health improvements were noticed within 3 weeks. So, every time I run this program, it blows my head up. I have to be honest. When I see these incredible changes, it's phenomenal. Caffeine. So enjoy now, pay later. And look, the more I learn about genetics, the more I learn that some people, caffeine actually is really good for them. It helps them make serotonin. I'm one of them. There are other people genetically where caffeine doesn't work and they actually struggle processing it. So, the caffeine that I see a lot of people having are coffee and tea and energy drinks and soda. How does it cause fatigue? Well, it blocks a neurotransmitter adenosine. So remember, adenosine triphosphate, ATP, is what we're trying to create. So if coffee is blocking that neurotransmitter, then that can cause fatigue. And then what we often see is, I see this a lot, people don't eat breakfast. They have lots and lots of coffees. Then sometimes they have lunch, sometimes they forget lunch. And then they're craving sugar in the afternoon, and then they're absolutely exhausted and written off. So that may sound like you, that might sound like someone you know, but what hopefully me just stepping that out, you can see, look, if you don't have the nutrients in the system, then the blood sugar's all over the place. And of course, it's going to result in a crash. So, what's the best way to keep your blood sugar stable when you're having coffee? Because I'm not completely against coffee. I think it's great for some people, is drink it after breakfast. So eat first, then drink the coffee. Try to work through when it's best for you to stop. Some people it's 10 a.m., some people it's 12. The half-life of coffee now, I think, is about 6 or 8 hours. So if you're having a coffee at 2 or 3 in the afternoon, then 8 hours later, you've got half of that caffeine still in your system. So what we're trying to do is bring the coffee as early as possible. So then by the time it's nighttime and sleep time, the content in your body is much, much less. The other thing is working through, well, how do you consume what I call energy boosting foods with each meal? Because that's really going to help you. And energy boosting foods are the rainbow of colors, especially green and orange veggies, the good quality carbohydrates that we just spoke about around the brown rice and the sweet potato and beans and lentils and things like that. Protein, and then the healthy fats, including nuts and seeds and avocado and coconut if you can tolerate it and things like that. And you might say, look, I don't have time to cook, but you can. You can do things easy. It comes back to meal prep. It comes back to, can you get a slow cooker or a pressure cooker? How can you best meal prep and prepare and plan so you've got these meals ready and available? And I have had the most inspiring young woman as an individual client recently. She grew up not really being taught how to cook. And she said to me, I'm sick of eating takeaway. Her goal was to get healthy and get her weight under control. As a 20-year-old, she was worried about her metabolic health. And I was shocked. So I just went through real fundamental stuff around meal planning and prepping and how do you go shopping and how do you write your shopping list and what are you going to buy? And we did the meal plan and we did the grocery list. And 3 weeks later, she came back. She'd lost already, I think it was like 3 or 4 kilos. She was doing it all. And um, yeah, she was a new woman. She was like, my energy's different. I've had a bag of lollies in my bag for a month now, and I haven't eaten any because I don't feel like it. And her energy had gone up. She's now waking up at like 5 and 6 a.m. It was crazy. It was incredible. And just by working through how do we change habits? And that's what functional medicine is. It's saying, right, I meet you where you're at. If we've got to go deep into genetics, if we've got to go to biochemistry, we have to. If we've got to look at sleep, if we've got to look at stress and herbs and supplements, or if we've got to look at the basics, we do that too, because you can do it easily and quickly. Another one, so Samantha, again, she loved the recipes. And Samantha, because she was moving house, she had a small fridge. And so she was like, oh my gosh, I have to buy a much bigger fridge to be able to accommodate all the fresh produce. And so she did that. And she was just like, it's been a game changer knowing what to buy, what to cook, what are my regular meals, and then also, um, yeah, exactly, to be prepared and really honing in on those healthier habits, which is amazing. And it motivated her to get back into exercise, which is always a benefit as well. Sugar. So again, a quick boost and then a crash. So alcohol is a big one. Lollies, cookies, cake, soft drink, cereal, granola bars, protein bars, juice, chocolate. I don't know why I don't have chocolate on the list. Um, the list goes on. You know, sugar is in pretty much all processed stuff these days. So, what you've got to try and work through is what's your body trying to tell you? So, blood sugar imbalances. So, if after a meal you're tired, or if after a meal, like an hour or two later, you're tired, some people it's pretty quick. It's like straight after they eat, they're exhausted. Others, it's a few hours later. I want you to stop to say, did I have healthy fats? Did I have fiber and good quality carbs? And did I have protein? And you might be thinking animal protein or eggs or tofu or lentils or beans or seeds and nuts. Was the balance there? And I think for a lot of people, when they start tapping in and asking the questions, especially when they're exhausted in the afternoon, they go, yeah, I skipped breakfast, or I missed lunch, or no, I just had hot chips, or, I didn't have what my body needed for fuel to feed into that citric acid cycle. They literally don't have what they need to make ATP. The other thing is I want to challenge you for the hydration challenge. Now, I love hydrogen water. I'll put a link to the coupon code because what this bottle does is it splits the hydrogen atoms. So hydrogen is water is H2O, two hydrogen atoms and an oxygen atom. Um, when we split the hydrogen atoms and then you drink the water, that water is able to permeate, that's not the word, get into even the smallest cells in the body. And for me, I started drinking that January last year. Last year? Yeah, January last year. I bought it for myself for Christmas. And it was about 6 weeks later, and I was like, wow, I just feel brighter. And a lot of people tell me they find it really easy to drink. It's, especially people who don't like drinking water, they say, wow, this one I actually really feel like drinking. And I feel like because of what it's done in my body, it did help shift my energy that next level up. Now, you can use the hydrogen water. You can just use the water you got. I'd love you to have filtered good quality water and do the hydration challenge. And that's drinking water that's enough for you, 6 or 8 cups, or a little bit more if you're exercising and sweating today, and see what your energy is like tomorrow. So usually the hydration, it takes a day or two to notice. I notice if my hydration's a bit lazy, and this happens sometimes because I'm in clinic back to back to back to back, and I'm like, oh, can't drink too much water because I can't go to the toilet. Um, Especially if, my lunch is very been blocked out, which, as a health professional, I really try to make sure I have my lunch break, but it does happen sometimes. The next day, I pay for it. I just feel flat. And I've really tapped in and I've worked out it's dehydration. So that can be another really easy thing you can try today to see, does it help you tomorrow? So Monique, she said she was a bit skeptical about the program, but what it did was it helped her reset and helped her change her mindset to say, look, if I'm eat certain things today that are not in my plan, that I don't want to be consuming, then I just reset and tomorrow's a new day. And I think that's a really good thing is just having that mindset to say, look, yep, I want to have great energy. I want to feel strong. I want to feel like I'm happy and joyful and all the things. What's the best way to do it for me? And for me, I've got to eat well. There's no question about it. And that's what Monique said as well. So hydrate yourself on waking. 2 cups of water. I'm just going to shut this because it looks like someone's going to come to the door. 2 cups of water in the morning on waking can really help and throughout the day as well. Just excuse me for 1 second. All right. So by consuming foods and drinks that give you energy instead of ones that can cause inflammation is part of the puzzle. So I really want to Um, sorry, excuse me. Apologies for that. My son is in the army, which is very exciting for him. We're very proud of him, and he just got some kind of mail that I had to sign for. So the postie's like staring at me through the door. Anyway, I'm back. So today, hopefully, you can really hone in and go, right, yeah, where can I make some upgrades? I love thinking about it as far as upgrades. What are the things that I can bring in that might help? What are the things that I could take out that might help? And also, not only food, drinks as well. So, what we've spoken about today, certain foods and drinks are robbing you. It could be nutrient and mineral deficiencies. Remember that Krebs cycle can come to a grinding halt sometimes if things are not working well, if there's toxins, if there's stress. Blood sugar is really critical. Gut health's really critical. The balance of the good bugs and the bad bugs, your stress and your adrenals, go to bed at the right time and waking up at the right time, not doing too much exercise, but also not doing enough, and also inflammation. So if you have autoimmune or other conditions going on, that can also contribute big time. So you want to wake up with energy, you want to feel fabulous, you don't want to rely on caffeine, you want to kick the sugar cravings, perhaps. You want to have more patience. This is the one I hear a lot, less so about co-workers, but more I want to have more patience with family. And I don't want to let that lack of energy, and I'll put in there brain fog and low mood, to get in the way of my life. So hopefully I've shown you today that there could be numerous routes. It could be just a couple. It might just be one thing, but energy production and fatigue is very, very complex. For some people, it's very simple, but for others, it can be quite complex. So if you need help, there's two ways. So you can join my 21-day energy jumpstart program, and that starts shortly. It's always running each season, which is a group detox program, or you can work with me one-on-one. So it depends where you're at. If you say, look, I've got to clean up my diet, and yep, tick. I know I've got to do some of this stuff. I've got to reduce my alcohol. I've got to reduce my coffee. I want to bring in the good foods and give that a red hot shot. This might be a good place to start. And for Kim, she says it was really transformational. It helped her make healthy food choices, had a dramatic improvement in her digestion. It also helped her healing from her having a baby. And she, within 3 weeks, said she felt so energized and happy, and she had glowing skin, and she lost a bit of weight. So, from her, she said it was a really big thing. And that was a good place for her to start. It's not for you if you're not wanting to take action, if you're not committed to 3 weeks. I know it sounds like a lot, but it goes by really quickly. I do it 4 times a year with my husband. So, you do have that supportive guidance every single day for the 21 days. And it's also not for you if you just say, oh, well, I'm happy with my lifestyle. But it is for you if you say, look, yeah, I want to have what they're having and I want to give it a go and I want to improve my gut. I want to try new things and I'm happy to do it for a 3-week period. You get a meal plan, you get a shopping list, you get a detox guide, which every year I update it. I've just updated it again based on my Institute of Functional Medicine study. We do an hour detox call every week. If you can join, you join by Zoom. If you can't, you watch the recording. And I support you every single day in the online forum as we do it together. And I basically lay it out and say, look, this is the protocol, this is the shopping list, this is the menu plan if you want to follow it. If you don't, you just go off and do it in your way. That's also good as well. But a lot of people really like structure. And for Beck, she loved it. She loved the meal prep. She loved the meals. She loved the preparatory work. And as a result, again, her skin was glowing. She found she had even more energy and even moods as well. And she's a really busy mum and business owner. So she says if you're thinking about it, definitely dive in. Look, the other option is working with me one on one. So if you feel like you resonate to some of my things around you've been tired forever, you've got really severe chronic fatigue, perhaps you've got long COVID, maybe there's other aspects to your health that you think is more complex, then you could welcome to book an initial appointment with me. I do send you intake forms. It is good if you've done any previous testing for me to see that so I can have a bit of a think. And then we deep dive for 90 minutes into your health and family history. And this is the most critical part. People often say, oh, look, can you just run the test for me? Or, can we skip over this? Absolutely not. So I am very, very clear that in my boundaries and how I operate is I do not skip over the story because in functional medicine, that is where I am able to join the dots. And that's where people have not done you justice. So the reason why you're still struggling with symptoms that are common but not normal is because no one's ever stopped to think and listen to your story. And for me, that was it. Would the detox have helped my chronic fatigue? Yeah, probably would have. But I tell you what, I wouldn't have been able to do it. I wouldn't have been able to get my backside out of bed. I was barely getting to the toilet and back. What I needed was this, where I had someone say, look, this is what you need to do. This is why you need to do it. And this is actually what's going on and what your challenges are. And I should share with you one time my organic acid test that I had from back then. It is shocking. I have never in my clinic seen one as bad as how mine was. So that's a story for another time. Um, but yeah, there's nothing like a health professional who's walked the path, I say. If needed, then I order your functional tests. I'll explain to you why. I'll explain to you the costs. I'll explain to you, the options of we may not need to do that. We could try some things first. And it always comes back to, what approach do you want to take? Do you want to go mild, medium, hot? And also what your resources are and how much you're wanting to invest. And I will give you recommendations. So after that appointment, you will have something to do and think about and move towards. Your plan, you'll get, if you've got test results, we'll go through them in detail, nutrition advice, recipes, menu plans if you need it, lifestyle suggestions, supplements, and advice if we need on any further testing. And very importantly, I listen to your story. It's, what have your successes been since I saw you last? What have your struggles been? Oh, that's interesting. I wonder why. We never stop to go, well, just write that down and leave it. It's always why. And make sure I'm answering your questions. So, if you're not sure what approach is right for me, book a discovery call. I'll give you a link in a minute. It's free. If you're working with another practitioner, I do collaborate a lot of the time. Some other health professionals do not want to collaborate. That's okay. It's up to them and up to you. If it depends, like for a lot of my clients who've got very complex things going on, it is very helpful if you've already spent a lot of money, and look, I work a lot with health professionals. I work a lot with people who have spent an inordinate amount of money, $30,000, $40,000, and numbers I often hear. They've often seen this many people, if I give you a big list. But what's missing is a story, is that functional medicine approach of someone listening, going, right, what's happened? I wonder why that happened. When did you last feel well? And putting some of the pieces together. So ultimately, book a free discovery call, see if you think, I can fit into your team. If yes, let's go ahead. And if not, that's fine. If you need to discuss it with your partner, yeah, of course, discuss it with them. You can share with them my YouTube and my videos. And especially if you want to do a program, it is helpful to know that they are family friendly. A lot of people, they start it themselves, then by the end of week one, week two, everyone in the house comes along because the recipes are delicious and, they want to try it out and they are family friendly as well. So that's it. To get started, you can register for the next coming up 21-day detox or cleanse. Sometimes I call it the Energy Jumpstart, or feel free to book a free discovery call. If you want to jump straight in, then you just book an initial integrative and functional medicine nutrition appointment. And that's a website. If you've got any questions, like I said, the best thing is to book a discovery call. You can also DM me on socials and things like that, but I'm much better if we talk face to face. I'm not the greatest on social media. All right, so that's it for today. I hope it's been helpful. If you put any of those things into practice, some of the food-based things or the hydration, and you notice a big difference, let me know. And like I said, I'll put a link to the hydrogen water bottle discount code below because it is big. You get 20% off, which is a big saving. Have a great day. And like I said, if you want to watch any of those other webinars, just search them up and feel free to share this with anyone who you think might be interested. Bye for now.